Ah, yes, vitamin D. The thing that in the past, when people lived in the industrial cities with vast number amounts of clouds from the smoke and ash from the factories blocking out the sky, would end up not having enough of and getting the disease rickets, with bendy legs and many of the other nasty diseases that shortened life. We do not live in those times anymore, but there is still much talk about vitamin D. So, what exactly is vitamin D? Well, in the sun, when you are exposed to UV light, that causes a chemical reaction which causes some cholesterol to convert into protovitamin D. That vitamin D ultimately goes to the liver, where it is metabolized further into 25 hydroxy vitamin D, and that then goes further again down into the kidneys, where it gets converted into 125 hydroxy vitamin D. This active form of vitamin D then binds to receptors, particularly in the stomach, that cause other things that allow for the uptake of more calcium. However, considering this, you'd think vitamin D is highly important. However, in recent years, when people have begun investigating vitamin D more closely, it doesn't seem to be that important. For one thing, using Mendelian randomization, it doesn't seem to be particularly associated with birth weight. More strangely, it even didn't seem to be associated with bone density itself, which is very bizarre. And it wasn't just vitamin D studies that have found this. There have even been some randomized controlled trials that have found similar things. One thing that vitamin D is associated with, oddly enough, using Mendelian randomization, is a lower risk of multiple sclerosis. And this may be due to vitamin D also independent of calcium having effects on the immune system. But then, now some smart asses might suggest that this is because that the instruments used in Mendelian randomization are not strong enough, i.e., they are not capturing enough variation in the change in vitamin D in the population to actually be usable. And this might explain part of it. So, more recent study using a lot more genetic variants for vitamin D has found that vitamin D is causally associated with height. And that makes more sense. Having slightly bendy legs would make you a little bit shorter. However, another study has found that vitamin D is still, even with the larger number of genetic variants, not associated with bone density. And which raises further questions. Maybe it is this is a misnomer that vitamin D was ever associated with bone density. It could also be that in the modern day, that vitamin D levels in a white European population are so high anyway, you are just not able to capture the levels that are that low that things like rickets and other diseases actually become a risk.